My name is James Anderson. I'm 21 years old. I spent about 5 years going in and out of the juvenile justice system in California. Growing up, I had a really rough childhood. I grew up in a dysfunctional family, and every day coming home, it seemed like it was a new battle. I had a mother, a father, and an older brother. And in elementary, I was a straight A student, and all I wanted was to get some type of recognition from my parents when I came home. I was looking for a pat on the back, something to say you're doing good, and I never received that. I remember coming home and seeing my parents always fighting, never knew when my mother was going to get beat. And every time my mother, my father, or my brother would get into these emotional distresses, I was the one they took it out upon, whether it was physically or verbally. And at that age, you don't have the capacity to psychologically make an analysis and be like, you know what, they're going through their issues. You look at it and you're like, there's something wrong with me, right? Because not all three of them could be wrong. And I started really looking at myself and feeling that I wasn't adequate enough. As this abuse started to go on, finally my parents divorced, and I found myself living in a household alone with my brother and my father. At this time, things really started to take a downward turn because my brother became deeply addicted to crystal meth and involved in gangs. So my reality of coming home wasn't coming home to a family, it was coming home to a brother who had these psychotic rampages and nearly beat me half to death. My reality was coming home to a father who locked himself in his room at 11 o'clock at night and not ask me how my day was going. That was the reality I had to accept. And at the age of 14, I became deeply addicted to crystal meth. And it completely took everything away from me, from my soul. And I thought just maybe, that'd be the time when my father would come to my aid. And it didn't happen. I started living in this environment every single day. I got to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. 2 months prior, my brother had tried to take his life by trying to overdose on pills. And his heart stopped twice. They got him to the hospital. And I realized, you know what, I'm going to make sure I finish the job on myself. And I remember going into the kitchen and emptying a bottle of prescription pills in my hand. And I remember swallowing a handful and then loading up another handful and swallowing it. And as the time went on, I started dozing in and out of consciousness. I started throwing up. And my dad came home and I realized I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die. And I ran to him and I told him, Dad, please take me to the hospital. And as he saw the pill bottle on the counter, he saw that it was empty. He started to beat me. And as I fell to the ground, he said, I'll never forget these words. If you want to die so bad, now you're going to have to deal with it. And he locked himself in his room. For 2 days after that, I was in horrible condition. I was throwing up uncontrollably. And I survived it. And it didn't occur to me, thank God I made it through. All I could think about was I knew we didn't have a great connection, but not to the point where he would turn his back on me when I needed it the most. At that point, I finally figured out, I finally thought to myself, if nobody cares about me, why should I care about myself? I started really getting involved in gangs, started going in and out of jail, and I actually thought that in jail was where I belonged. I thought that was the home that I was going to spend the rest of my life in, and I had to accept that because I was never going to be happy. All the way up into my prior incarceration where I was facing over 30 years at the age of 16, and I wanted to go do that time. I wanted to get sentenced as an adult. And people would tell me, Anderson, don't you want to go home? And I would tell them, go home to what? A family? I don't have anything to go home to. I was one of the worst gang members in there, known for being violent. And after 18 months of fighting my case, the one thing that changed, this horrible gang member that people would say lock away from society, that everyone would point at and said he's never going to change, but he did because one person showed him love, an emotion that had been eluded from his life for so long. And it was so powerful because that emotion of love brought happiness into my heart. And it changed everything because it was so long since I had felt it, since I even thought it was real. And I realized at that point that I would do anything to feel that emotion again, and I completely turned around because I've always been a 100% type of person. Anything I do, I put in my entire heart, soul, and passion into it. And I realized I had to make this change, and I did. And it was inspiring because other people that were incarcerated saw me do it, this prominent gang member, and they're like, if he can do it, we can do it. And you start seeing this beautiful change happening. I was finally sentenced to 7 years in a strike, and now I went into the CYA system, now known as Division of Juvenile Justice. And I find Scott Budnick and Rosalind Vent, two people that really molded me and helped me realize the power that I have between my leadership. Scott told me about ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and it was an idea at this point of what he was forming, this great group of people. And I realized at that moment, I was going to dedicate my life, my soul to changing the world, to helping others. I've been home for 16 months now, and I've been on a plane 20 times. I've spoken across the country. ARC is now an official nonprofit organization where we focus on mentoring, we focus on policy advocacy, and we have other components that we're currently building, and it's been beautiful. We just got incorporated this April. I'm blessed to be the first full-time employee, and everything's been amazing. I'm a full-time college student. Hopefully in the semester I'll be transferring to UCLA. And just being able to inspire change in everybody else that came from the same background as I did, just being able to inspire everyone and help them understand that there is hope for the future and that people do care no matter what you've been through in your past, it will never define your future. That's what keeps me going every single day.